welcome back to the Disc Dog Pod. I'm your host, Kirby McIlveen, and this is my co-host, Jeff Hill.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about one of our favorite disciplines in disc dogging, which is pairs.
It's so innovative, so fun.
Yes. So if you don't know what pairs is, it's, well, for right now, it's only in Skyhounds, but we're hoping one day other organizations will add this, but it's basically 2 dogs and 1 handler, and they have pairs freestyle, and there's also pairs distance accuracy, which is toss and fetch. So 2 different disciplines of pairs, but both are really fun. But of course, I think our heart is both kind of in the pairs freestyle for sure.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about how the freestyle, what the rules are and how it works?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically really more or less the same thing as freestyle with an additional handler and an additional category, which is called team. So, you know, one more element that they're judging in addition to the regular freestyle categories that would normally be judged is the team element. So, you know, how both handlers work together with the dog all together.
And the other big thing, if the 5-disc limit at Skyhound scares you, do pairs because you get 5 more discs.
Yes, you get 10, which is great. So double the discs,
Yes.
which is nice. We definitely, when we play pairs, it's, you know, definitely a breath of fresh air because we don't really have any problems with disc management because there's so many more to play with.
Right, and two people picking them up. So it's basically, you've doubled your ability to pick up discs, double your discs. It really is much easier, the disc management.
Yes, it's a lot easier for sure because somebody can kind of get the dog to do something or make a throw the other way, and the other person can be picking up the discs.
And if one person picks up a couple extra, they could toss them or hand them to the other player.
Trust me, I remember doing pairs with my mom. So over my journey of disc dogging, I have had many pairs partners that I've played with, and one was my mom, and she was always like, I don't want to run around and pick up all the discs. You do that. Just hand them to me. So I got to be the disc picker upper for both of us, which was pretty funny. But I mean, we did pairs back in 2009, and it wasn't too bad. I think we were maybe 6th or 7th at the finals. It was pretty good.
That's
great. Pretty good. It was the year that the whole Skyhounds finals got rained out, and we had to do everything all in one day, which was wild. I don't think that'd be possible anymore. It's grown so much, but.
And Skyhounds Classic, the pairs freestyle is the last thing of the day, and it's only 1 round at the qualifier. If you're at the finals, then you do have 2 rounds, but that 1 round is always at the very end of the day, and it's because it's kind of like the highlight of the whole competition. It really is. It's entertaining. It's fun. Some people go out and they wear some wigs and
oh yeah, people
like
have had a lot of fun with it over the years. I mean, full-on dance routines, you know, crazy outfits, you know, yeah, people get really, really creative with it, I think. So it's nice to see. And what I like seeing too is that I feel like people get pulled in that may not have otherwise done freestyle. That, you know, I mean, Jen didn't do a whole lot of freestyle until you guys did pairs, and that kind of roped her in. My mom doesn't do freestyle. I wrangled her in to be a pairs partner.
I think maybe for what you might call like a secondary handler like that, somebody who goes with you to support you but doesn't really play, this is a perfect opportunity to get them on the field with you, and because you could support them and carry them and just basically tell them how what to do and where to be and guide them through it and try to make it as easy as possible for them.
So careful in telling who you tell what to do and where to be.
No, but if it's somebody who doesn't play very much, they're going to want that.
Yeah, they might want to know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think one of the jokes is be careful doing pairs if you're married because it might end in divorce.
For me, it's been a lot of fun. Every time that I've done pairs, it's been really enjoyable. I mean, when we go out to practice, it always results in laughter.
Yeah, usually we're laughing and then
laying on the ground,
and then
laughing.
Our dog is like looking at us like, "What are you 2 idiots doing?"
It's just so much fun. It
is a lot of fun.
It's a lot different from anything else because you're now relying on 2 other teammates instead of just having your dog as your teammate. You have a person, another person, and a dog, and then the dog needs to be with 2 handlers. So it's sort of it just everything completely changes the whole dynamic.
Yes, absolutely. So, like one of maybe some tips for being successful in pairs freestyle specifically, I think the most important is to be on the same page. So, unlike in singles freestyle where it's just you and your dog, you only have to tell, one partner what's going on. Whereas in pairs freestyle, the other person has to know and the dog. So it's highly advisable to go out there with some kind of plan in advance. Otherwise, if you're making it up on the fly, it could be a little bit hectic and could be hard to communicate what you're doing unless you guys already know and kind of speak the same disc dog language.
And that's something that has helped us tremendously because we train together.
Yes.
We talk about the sport all the time. We talk about different moves. We know each other's moves, or we know each other's strengths. And because of that, we're able to basically help each other and communicate really easily.
Yeah.
And just in a few words, some people were watching us do our pairs practice before, and they said it just sounded like another language to them. They didn't even know what we were saying because we were using all these commands and saying things to each other and talking through things, and they didn't understand any of it. And they play frisbee. Like it's just that we're on the
But
same
then we
page.
were on the same page, and we obviously were able to know what we were talking about. But to everybody else, they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. So it definitely helps if you guys are speaking the same terminology. Otherwise, it could get confusing. Another way that we start pairs and a way of getting started is just getting the dog to play with both people. I think that's a challenge in the beginning, especially if the handlers are different families. So like for us, our dogs don't live together. So my dogs don't live with Jeff. They don't know him. His dogs don't live with me. So from now we've started from puppyhood, we kind of work with the dogs when they're puppies so they get used to both of us now that we kind of have it in our heads that we're going to do pairs. But
right. So with all the puppies, we first develop a relationship with every time we get a new dog. It's always a relationship that the other person needs to. They have to have an initiative to try to be friends with that dog and to be buddies with them. And that's just even when they're just little babies. And of course, you're not even playing frisbee yet, but you're just developing a relationship. And then as it goes on, once the dog starts learning how to play frisbee a little bit, then we get involved with the other person pretty much right away.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with Cheeky, you've been playing with Link, and we've kind of started that now as like what if we want to play pairs with them? We would like them to be okay playing. We don't want to not build that, and then a year or two later, it's like
wish we had
it. Yeah, wish we had it, and then oh shoot, this is going to make pairs a lot harder, and it's more seamless, I think, when they start from the beginning. And
oh yes, we've seen that.
Yeah.
Because just with some of the other dogs that we had in the past, we tried to play with them a little bit, like Enzo. It was a bit of a challenge. And so one of the big things with this training is to have the other person just play with the dog by themselves. That's usually how we start. So it's okay, here's the dog, go get your disc, go play. And then the owner, the handler who owns the dog is really just watching and maybe just saying, oh, maybe they don't know how to do that yet, or they're not familiar with that, or don't try that, or maybe you should do this, or just whatever they see going on. And typically that's how we do it. And virtually every time when this happens, the dog runs back to the owner within
the very first
right away
time,
and then they just call them back out. But they know the other person.
Yes, but over time they start to learn, oh, I can connect with that person on my own without my owner. And so I think this is all, if you're married or you live together, it's much more seamless, I think, because the dog grows up with both of them. But I mean, we've even seen it that, people that they live together and the dog is really glued to one owner, and then the other one tries to play and they sort of, run back to their favorite. And so, I mean, I think this kind of goes for everybody, but even more so agree. When you don't live together and they're not with you all the time. So that's something that we do as, pairs partners that don't live together. Of course, we hang out all the time, and train together. So our dogs get to play with each other. So that's really important. And on the note that you said about connecting with the other partner, we've taken that pretty far. Like, I've competed with Muse individually.
Right.
You've competed with Sora
Right.
individually. And I think that was something that was really, really helpful with both dogs. They each got to connect with the other
Yes.
partner on the field without their owner, which I think was incredibly helpful because it builds that confidence.
Yes.
Because the dog's really got to be able to play with both of you. I mean, that's the most important.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge advantage to be able to do that, and to have the trust to be able to allow you to play with my dog at a competition, and then many times we're taking ourselves out of the competition to do that, to give the other person an opportunity to play with the dog. And it's I know I love playing with Sora. It's just so fun. And
Of course, I always love playing with Muse, for sure.
I
She's
played with
awesome.
Sketch, of course, back in the day.
Yes.
A few times by myself at competitions,
Yep.
but it wasn't for pairs. We didn't know.
That was I think our biggest regret. Now, hear it from us if you're not doing pairs yet. I think our biggest regret as far as pairs goes was just not doing it
When
with
we didn't
Sketch.
do it?
We just didn't do it. I
we
don't know
talked
why.
about it.
I mean, we
talked
kind of
about
talked about it, and we just never put it together and did it.
Because it does take effort.
It does.
That when you have to drive and meet each other, and you got to set up a time and make sure you get there and you work together. And then a lot of times when you're doing that, then your dog's not training for anything else. We're just going to do pairs, and then
Yes.
that's all that they're doing. So now, if it's your dog, you've got it that day that you set aside for training. It's not going to be for any of your singles training.
Yeah, absolutely.
would
So it
do.
does take a little extra training time and a little bit of extra stamina from your dog.
Yeah.
And because pairs is so coordinated, I mean, you do kind of have to practice it so that everybody's on the same page.
Well, certainly to do it at a high level, and to get qualified and go to the finals, you definitely want to work a lot on making it just like as smooth as it could possibly be. And pairs can be made very smooth because you got two people.
Yes.
You got double the people, pick up discs and all that kind of stuff. So you can make it very smooth. The thing is, if it's two people who haven't worked with the dog, every time you see them go out, it's always kind of like clunky and like,
Sure.
and then you could just tell if somebody didn't put a whole lot of time into it, and you don't need to do it. You can
Yeah,
just
I mean, there's
fun.
a lot of people that just go out there and just have a blast. So that's always an option. But if your sights are set on being, more competitive, then it's pretty important to have it smooth, probably more so than anything else.
Right, and it takes a lot of practice to do that.
Yeah, and even without the dog, I mean, one way that you can do it is to practice the movements together, the humans, and the dog gets to rest, because usually the dogs figure it out.
Right. And so what do you think about the team category and our progression with that?
Yeah, that's a great topic, because I think that's what kind of separates pairs from the others, because of course the dog's going to be spectacular as usual, like they are just like in singles, and the throwers are going to throw just like they do in singles, but team is really what sets apart the pairs from the other events. So I think at least when I've judged pairs, what I want to see in team is that both of the handlers are involved in most of the tricks in some form. Now, that could be the dog is using the one person like as a launch pad for the vault, and the other person's tossing it. Or, maybe one of the handlers is doing a throw while the other is kind of doing a showmanship move around them to make it a pairs thing, instead of just letting that throw go and it's just the one person involved.
Right. Or the one person does the throw and then the other person does the dog catch.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's all kinds of moves, and I think that's one of the really neat things about pairs is there's a lot to be discovered yet.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that still haven't been done in pairs.
And we've had so many ideas. I mean, we must have had hundreds of ideas.
Oh yeah.
But so many of them are just like, we just don't know how to do this right now, or we haven't
it's
been able
hard
to figure it out.
Yeah.
But we have all kinds of crazy, cool ideas. And then the ones that are successful are the ones that you end up seeing.
Right. Exactly. Well, and for us, I think because our focus is a little bit, all over we have to focus on toss and fetch and singles freestyle and that kind of stuff. If we put 100% effort of our time into pairs, I'm sure it would be a little bit different. But because we do all the events and all the things, it's very hard to devote all your time to just one discipline. But pairs is fun nevertheless.
And some people at the World Championships do put their focus in pairs.
Yeah, I've seen people do that where like their dog, that particular dog just plays pairs.
Right.
You know.
And some of the successful teams have been
The
that's
ones that
primarily
fully
all they've
focus.
done. They've
Yes.
just, and they've even come from international teams coming
Yeah.
to Skyhounds.
Absolutely.
So it's
there's been a lot of international world champions,
yes.
or at least multiple.
Yep. Italy and Japan.
Yes.
And
Canada.
Canada, that's right. I was thinking
Angela and Rick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they
the girls
probably
with Cody from Japan and Cosma and Antonio from Italy. They're all really good.
So they constitute probably more than half of the total wins.
Well, a lot of them are from Cosma and Antonio. They won 3.
Well, yeah. So maybe it's half and half, but it's very, very international.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
which is kind of a nice thing about it. Now, when we started, we didn't quite have that team element down.
No, we didn't. And we started with Muse. Our first dog we did pairs with was Muse. And it was kind of came about because we were training a lot together. And we're like, we always talked about doing it with Sketch and we never did. And Sketch was alive then, but he was much older. So it was a little bit late to start. I mean, we could play pairs, but some of the really creative like dog catches and vaults and stuff he was a little bit too old to do. And we said, we better do this with Muse because we're going to regret it if we don't. We've got to put something together with her. So we did.
And Muse loved you already at that time.
So it made it very easy, very easy yes, because Muse already wanted to play with me and was super connected with me as it was.
Right. So that so when we started, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare because
we did it last minute.
We did it kind of last minute. We had about
a month. Yeah.
It was in August, and then the finals were in September. So we had about a month or so to prepare.
And we weren't qualified. We were just going to do last chance qualifier too.
And so we went into it just thinking, well, let's just get something together and play. And we're not going to be able to do anything too crazy fancy, but let's try to just do pairs, it's really if both of you are playing with the dog equally.
Yeah.
And we did do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, initially we sort of did a bit of back and forth where Muse kind of played with me and did a trick, then went to you and did a trick. And it was a little bit fragmented. There wasn't a lot of team. And of course, our team score was probably the lowest all of our scores, if I remember correctly. That was like 10 years ago. So hard to remember. But I recall that being our lowest score. And it was kind of because sure, she played with both of us and it was excellent. And the moves we were doing were excellent. And while we won, it was mostly because Muse was spectacular. We could both throw and she played with us superbly. But our team score was the weak area. And we kind of looked back at the video and we're like, okay, what we did was great for all of the time that we put in and all of that. But we could really take this to another level by focusing more on the team element and making more tricks that involve all 3 of us.
Right. And when you get the team element to go up, especially this particular category is going to impact all of them because this is a pairs event. So even though you're still being judged in presentation with 3 two people and a dog out on the field, there's a presentation element just to that. And then the athleticism and then the wow factor and all of those things and success, it is going to all be impacted by your team score. It really is. I think that's the driving force in the whole entire for pairs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because if it's really just one handler, you may as well be doing singles, right? So
yes. And even though we didn't have a lot of what we call pairsy kinds of stuff in our first routine, we did do some things that were sort of interesting. I remember we started it with like I did a reverse vault and then you did a reverse vault, and it was like kind of like a symmetrical thing. So we did a lot of these things with symmetry so that you would do it, I would do it, and we would do the exact same thing. It would be mirrored or next to each other or something like that. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. We did have a couple pairs moves. Like I think she was doing like the vault to dog, like she vaulted off you and I caught her.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple things, but and we were switching a lot, going back and forth. That was something to keep in mind when coming up with a pairs routine, is that we will list out who's throwing and like kind of see if there's a pattern, because if it goes Kirby, 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 throwing. And then we're like, oh, Jeff hasn't thrown any in like 3 or 4 throws. This is going to start looking too individual. So we try to make it back and forth. And the most that one of us would do is maybe 2 throws is the hope.
Yes, we try to limit it to 2, and there.
Now, of course, if it's a multiple, that's a little different.
Right.
But, you know,
it's
2
only
tricks.
every now and then that we probably in the whole routine at this point. I do it one time where I throw 2 in a row, once or twice, and then you do it maybe once or twice, but that's about it. Other than that, we try to alternate every other throw, and we try to incorporate both of us into every single trick if we can. It's not really possible to do that.
Sometimes it's difficult, especially when you're just making like a longer throw. But I mean, we found ways around that. I mean, I looked back at an old video, and I remember there was one where I kind of put my arms up, and you threw
behind,
forehand, left hand and forehand like around me. So it's kind of like, even if it's, you know, some of the stuff was simple, and other ones I think you threw through a hoop,
air bounce.
Yeah.
We do an air.
Oh, that's
we've done
yeah.
Air
That's kind of. I think I would say that's probably like one of our signature pairs moves is to do. He does an air bounce over me. Of course, there was one time where I did it over you too, but mostly we've stuck with you doing it over me, and pretty much I just am in front and go down and put my arms out, and then Jeff does the air bounce over me. So it kind of, while Jeff's doing the throw by himself and I'm not really involved, I am involved because I'm part of the presentation, the showmanship part.
And you put yourself in danger.
I put myself in danger. And luckily, he's never knocked me in the head.
No, but there was one time.
He was pretty close.
At the World Championships, when it came down and went up, so it was bouncing. It was at the lowest point right over your head, and when it went up, her hair popped. It went poof, like a poof from her hair, because it was
like
it
was pretty much like I was about to get a haircut.
It had to be that close.
It was very close. Yes, but it worked. So
yes,
I mean, nobody died, so we were all.
And
okay.
After that, I said, okay, maybe we should be a little closer, because we would be about 10 yards apart, and that's really hard to do it accurately. So now we're a little closer, so that we don't have to worry about it.
But you know, I think there's always kind of a way to, you know, weasel the other person in, however you do it, right? One that Jeff and Jackie Sheets did, I think, was like Jackie did the like V, and he did like a back vault over her. So like, even though he was doing the whole back vault with the dog was going over her.
Yep.
So it made her part of the show too. So that it's all those kinds of things, and that's where pairs can get really extra fun and creative.
Right. Like, I mean, just so many different things that we've come up with. We got a new one this year. I'm not gonna let anyone know about what we're doing this year, but we got a new move in our routine this year, and it's off the charts.
It's pretty cool. I remember a few years ago we did one with Sora where she did the double disc chest vault, where I tossed one on the way up and another one going on the way out, but then we turned it into a pairs move.
Yep.
And I tossed the first one and Jeff tossed the second one, and that was crazy when she hit that. That was really cool.
It was very difficult. But whenever it happened, I think a lot of people would be like, what just happened?
It was almost too fast.
Yeah, it was almost too quick, because it was like bang, bang.
Yeah.
But the timing for Sora to be able to do that and us to be able to do that it's extremely difficult.
It was really crazy. But that was just something that it's just wild, like the things that you can take. And a lot of times what you'll see happen is, and especially in the beginning, if the pairs routine isn't quite there yet, but people are just starting, you could take somebody's singles routine and make it into a pairs routine, or at least take elements of that.
Right.
And we do that with Sora now. Like I do the double disc leg vault, where in my singles routine I toss 2, she catches 1 and I catch 1, but in our pairs you catch the 1 and I'm just throwing. I'm not catching anything, luckily.
and we almost always have that in our routine, where somewhere during the routine we throw a disc to one another, but it's not just here's a disc. You could do that's still pairs if you just toss one to the other player just to give them another disc, but we incorporate it into the trick. So as we're throwing a disc to the dog, one is throwing to the other player or something like that, and it's completely incorporated with both of us throwing to each other into the dog.
It's incorporated into the next throw typically too. Like we did one where you tossed one to me, but I grabbed it in the position that I was going to throw from. So it was very, very quick.
Yeah. And at that moment, that I was throwing to you, I also threw one to Muse. So Muse is catching one, Kirby's catching one,
So
and
the whole
then
thing is like in flow. So that's like the goal. That's the ultimate goal, is to get it to that, that fluid movement.
So add that kind of stuff into your pairs routine if you can.
One of my favorite ones that I've seen of somebody throwing one disc to another is when Brad Denny throws it to Elizabeth with Maya, and he would throw it and Elizabeth would brush it. Or no, was it vice versa? Maybe she threw it and he brushed it.
And really the hardest part of that is the throw. And Elizabeth,
she's pretty dang good at it.
But yeah, she is so good at that throw. Every time, I mean, they've hit it almost every time.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I mean, and it's from far away. I mean, she's probably standing 15, 20 yards.
I'm thinking 20 yards.
Yeah.
And she throws it in there, and it comes right out in front of him, and he brushes it. And we've done those kinds of things before where like I'd spin one and then pop it up and then you'd brush it.
We've tried some wild things.
Yeah, we've done a whole bunch of different kinds.
Chest roll, the longest chest roll in the world. Yeah.
We've tried to do things where one of us will kick it to the other person,
and you can see how this ends up with us just laughing.
Yes, because it's usually fails. All these things, 90% of them fail, but they're so fun to try. It's just all these crazy things.
Yeah.
Like one of us will just say, "Okay, I got an idea." No, just stay with me here.
And the problem is that's where the trouble starts.
You're like, oh, wait a second.
That's exactly where the trouble starts. Is when we pull up to the park, we get out of the car, and one of us is like, "I got an idea," and we're like, "Oh no!"
And then the same thing happened when we're working together. We come up with a trick, and we just start getting something going with the trick, and immediately, almost every time, one of us is like, I got an idea.
Oh, yeah.
And we're already trying to modify the thing that we didn't even, we've only tried it once, and we're already trying to modify it to make it better just because we see something.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the thing with us. We're so equal with our level of play that when we do our pairs, it's also equal.
Yeah, I think it helps. I think it helps when the handlers are at equal level. When there's one that's significantly better than the other, I think, unfortunately, it does tend to highlight that the weaker player is not as strong.
Right, you can usually
when
see
both
that.
Players are kind of the same level, even if they're not as high, I think you don't notice it quite as much because both are kind of at that same level. So you don't see the stark contrast. And so that's probably why part of the reason that we're good is because we're on the same level, or it looks good is because it's on the same level. But if you are different levels, that's something to consider is, what are your strengths and what are their strengths? And I guess that goes for no matter what level. I think we kind of have this too, is like there's certain throws, like I'd never be able to do a lefty forehand. I mean, I could, but it wouldn't look very nice. And then like some of the, really particular dog catch vault throws, like with Sora, especially because she's really picky on how she wants it thrown, that's harder for you to do because it's so specific how she wants it, and it's awkward for you. You're like, how does she want it? I'm like, yeah, I know, she thinks backwards sometimes. But that's stuff that you just kind of have to think about when you're putting your routine together, is like, what are the strengths and weaknesses, and play off of each other's strengths, and you can kind of cover for the other.
Right. And even with that lefty forehand that I threw around you, you also couldn't do it because your arm's not long enough.
Well, I definitely couldn't throw it around you.
Right.
And I'm not saying you're big. It's because I got short little T-Rex arms.
And I got my arms they're
Jeff's got long monkey arms.
So for me, that's a huge advantage, and I try to use that in pairs. We've done that numerous times with different types of things that I've done with throws because I got goofy long arms. So
yeah, that's true.
Take advantage of it, and just so many different things that you're good at doing.
Well, there's been some things like I've rolled off your back and things like that because I'm smaller,
right?
So if there's a size difference in your pairs partner, maybe there's some things that you can do with that, or if you guys are the same height, there's advantages to that as well. I think it does. I think, to me, when I watch pairs and both players are kind of the same height, that's nice to see. But there's also pros and cons to all of it, right?
Yeah, and we've seen like adults with their kids, and they'll have on their shoulders, and they're both throwing discs. Now that's very pairsy.
Oh yeah,
it's very cool. The Korean team did that. And they were adults. They were both adults.
They were incredible, but they're both incredibly athletic guys.
Yeah, they're small too. I mean, like if I try to get on your shoulders,
Joe, they're really.
If I got on your shoulders, I don't know if you'd be able to do it.
Yeah,
they did some crazy stuff.
We aren't trying that one. They were really, really good. Yeah. When did they play? Gosh, I'd love to give a reference for people to maybe look up. Oh, maybe it was 19. It was before COVID.
So probably 2019.
Yeah, I think it was late, like between 2017 and 2019, I think, at some point. And they only did it maybe 1 or 2 years.
I remember what Muse won in 2019, and they were there that year.
They were really good.
That had to be
their only weak point was the catch ratio. They struggled the first round, I think, with the catch ratio, and then the second round, of course, they nailed it. But they were really spectacular to watch. So I don't think they're watching this, but if they are, you guys need to do pairs again because it was so enjoyable.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell them when I go back to Korea. I'm gonna say you guys need to do that again because it was so good. So maybe you should tell a funny story because I know you're sitting here dying to say it. So
we like to finish with a funny story, and when we started our very first pairs with Muse, we said, okay, we got to come up with some ground rules, and then we're sitting there thinking about it. Like we weren't really coming up with a whole lot, but there was one thing.
Well, because we had to figure out, like, is there tricks that Muse doesn't like that I shouldn't do, or any of those kind of things that we should be aware of. But then another subject came
up. What we decided is that there will be no positions. And what we mean by positions is anything that when you watch it, it looks a little awkward. And
or it looks like you're married.
Yeah, but it probably may not. I don't know if you should be doing that out there anyways, because to me, whenever I watch some pairs routines and I'm like, do they need a room? Just it gets a little awkward.
It's not very many of them, and it's usually often, just a couple tricks.
But every year you're gonna see a few of them, few moves, from a few different teams, and it's
my gosh,
I don't know if this belongs here. So we said no positions.
And when we said no positions, we were like, we're not even gonna get within like a foot of each other. I'm like, you have cuties, get away from me.
Oh my god!
And then we realized that with the team score, we do have to maybe be near each other.
We'll
put our arms around each other.
And do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was funny though. It's mostly just because
that was the funniest thing.
Yeah,
we were laughing for like 30 minutes after that was
said. It was hard to get through that day of training because we were laughing
so hard.
And that's what I think that would be my advice for everybody is have fun, because this is the funnest event.
It's really fun.
I'm so glad Skyhounds came out with this. I think we're going to do another pairs podcast sometime, talk about more stuff.
We love pairs. We could talk about it in more detail.
And pairs DA, we could talk a little bit more about some of our specific events that we had, and some of our favorite teams, and just specific moves and things like that. We can do another one and go into more detail, because it's just
absolutely
have fun with it. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's probably like one of the biggest tips to success with pairs is don't worry about competitive pressure. Honestly, just enjoy it, because pairs is one of those things that it's hard to do it at a high level because you both have to be on, and the dog. It's like all three of you have to be on, and chances are most days one is probably going to have to carry the other a little bit, and that could be the dog carrying both the handlers. We've had that before,
and we've in our routines something that we didn't mention is that we're always yelling out to each other different commands, different things. Even if it doesn't matter if you think the other person knows what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're thinking, hey, this is what we're doing next, just say it.
Yeah, sometimes we just kind of talk through the next sequence, or just remind each other of like what's coming next, just because sometimes you forget. I mean, if you forget your singles routine, you could be sure you're probably going to forget something in your pairs routine. So sometimes it's nice to like name the sequence, like we'll go into the we'll be out there and like talk to each other, like, oh, this is the spinning sequence, oh, this is the leg vault sequence, oh, this is the back stall sequence, and just so that you both kind of have an idea of what's going on. And it's not even a bossing thing, it's more of just a remember what the routine is, because sometimes it's hard to remember everything,
and someone's having an off day or whatever, or like one of us just not feeling as good, and at the finals that happens a lot because we're exhausted. It's at the end of the event.
We've had a whole week long
of competing, and we're exhausted, and sometimes it's 100 degrees and we're melting, and one of us is just dehydrated or something, and we need the other partner to just run with it. And we'll a lot of times say before we go out there, hey, I need you like a lot.
Yeah.
Like tell me everything, tell me everything the whole time we're doing it, and then that's going to help.
Absolutely. Yeah, the communication's key. You know, just like communication in singles to your dog is really important. In pairs, it's double time because you got to communicate to the dog and your pairs partner. But, you know, it's a lot of fun. So if you haven't tried it yet, you have to try it. It's a joy. Wrangle your friends and your family and get them involved. This is your way to get them in. Give them the disc dog bug.
If you got any questions, ask us, because we love talking about pairs.
Yeah, we want to talk about pairs more because we just love it so much, and we've been doing it every year since we started. So, yeah, which is 10 years now. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. So, thank you guys for watching.
Love your dogs.
And
Disc Dog Pod in the
enjoy.
house.
And I want to see some pairs routines.